We wish you a Merry Christmas. Oh, wait, not yet.
Not quite yet. Almost.
No. Friends, lovers, thank you for joining us. This is 5 Minutes with Robert and Amy Nasir, and it's almost Christmas time, which is why we are glad you are here live and in the chat. Got my chat screens up there on this fine, well, December 15th. That's just 10 days. 10 days from Santa's big day.
Yes.
Hope you're looking forward to it. Hope you're already in the spirit. We were in the spirit last night. We got into the spirits last night. At least I know you did, Amy.
A little bit.
That's right. Christmas is in 10 days. And, hey, Halloween is just 320 days away.
Yeah.
Somewhere in between there on this July 15, 2024, we have 16 days. 16 days left in 2024. 16 days until 2025. 16 days left to make this your best year yet. You know, sometimes what makes a given year the best year yet is one event. So 16 days could be plenty. It could be something that happens on one of those 16 days. Either way, hope y'all are doing well, enjoying this what's the word I'm looking for? Coming up to the Christmas season.
Yeah, Christopher in the chat here on YouTube says 10 more sleeps.
10 more
Which
sleeps.
Which is funny because I wasn't actually familiar with that song. It was like, I forget so many, I don't know how many sleeps. I forget the song title now. So many sleeps till Christmas or one more sleep till Christmas. That's what it was. And it was actually from, I think it was from the Muppet Christmas Carol, which I don't think we've watched entirely. But that was actually last night. We had that was sung to us
night
last night.
Night before last, that's right.
Yeah, not last night. The night before last. And anyway, I listened to that again, and I really like it. And it's a good song.
Went to a Christmas play, Home for the Holidays. It was a variety show. And great fun. Live theater, always a good idea. We have friends who do live theater, which gives us the motivation to go out and see local. Local is cool. Because this theater that we went to on Friday, for example, small room, 12 rows? I don't know. It goes back to row H if that's 12. Little theater, intimate. You're right there with the performers. If you get a chance to do those things and you think, I don't go out that much, I want to see professional. No. Go see. I mean, these guys were great. I don't mean to say they weren't professional, but do that thing. And you're right. I was not familiar with that Muppets Christmas song either.
Right.
But it was cute.
It was very nice. And it kind of reminded me of kind of like going to bed early and having some tea and reading a book or, whatever. And just kind of like doing something before you actually go unconscious.
It's funny you mention that because as I was greeted with my calendar today, so good. Mm-hmm. The calendar told me it was International Tea Day.
Oh, nice.
I thought, well, that can't be right. And I looked it up. No, International Tea Day is in May.
Oh.
So it was one of my calendars was not lying to me. It was adding on extra holidays. But nonetheless, I'm drinking tea. I don't have coffee tonight. I always have coffee during this show. I decided to go with the tea in the Merry and Bright mug. This is actually your mug, isn't it? Merry and Bright?
No, it's both, actually.
It's our mug.
It's our mug.
We may have been gifted that. A great Christmas mug. Tea tonight is English breakfast tea. So if you're drinking along at home, it's nothing fancy. It's the Bigelow English. I'm curious, those of you who drink tea, I know we have UK viewers and listeners. What's your tea? You might have more than one, of course, but your favorite tea or favorite one or two teas. I like the Bigelow English breakfast, but I like just about any good black tea. And would love to know what's in your teacup. If I'm not drinking caffeinated tea, it's usually one of those nighttime teas. Mm-hmm. Sweet dreams, sleepy time.
I like ginger tea or gingerade tea by Traditional Medicinals and
spiky.
And I also like Twinings Winter Spice. That's got the like the apple and the cinnamon and nutmeg and things along with the chamomile, and it's really a great tea for this time of year if you're in the northern hemisphere.
Yes.
One more thing is that the version of One More Sleep Till Christmas was not sung by Kermit the Frog that I looked up.
Oh, I thought we were told that it was.
It is, actually, originally. But I found a better one called, actually sung by a lady named Mary Kate, C-A-I-T, and she was really good. So there you are. There's a recommendation. One more
Mary
sleep.
Kate. Not Kate and Mary.
No.
Mary Kate.
Yeah,
Okay,
One More
good.
Sleep Till Christmas by Mary Kate.
Not to pick on Kate and Mary or anything. So, 10 days till Christmas. 16 days till the end of the year. New Year's Eve is around the corner, so as you're putting your Christmas together, I'm sure you're already deep in the heart of Christmas. Do think about your New Year. What do you want to be doing on New Year's Eve? I know some of you out there are big Yaron Brook fans, and he's going to be doing his New Year's Eve fundraiser. Excuse me a second. T gave me a bit of a sniffle there. Fundraiser, that's going to be fun. He's going to try to raise, okay, get this. Yaron Brook, for those of you who know, philosophical commentator, hardcore objectivist, does podcasts, probably the most successful podcast in the OIST community. He's going to try to raise $15,000 on New Year's Eve.
He's done it before. I think he's done less than that, maybe 10,000.
Yeah,
But he keeps upping it up.
Yeah, and it helps that sometimes he has a matcher, some fairly generous, wealthy, or generous, or both person who will match. So if you send him a $20 super chat, they match it with another 20. That's a lot of money for one event. And I thought, man, we got to get our subscribers up to 1,000 so YouTube will turn on the super chat option with us. But maybe we'll do that too, the week of New Year's Eve. I don't know. What are we doing? What are you doing New Year's Eve?
I know.
Folks, tell me, if we did a New Year's Eve show, would you watch? Would you be there with us? Do you have plans for New Year's Eve, or would you be hanging out? Because Yaron is doing his show starting at 1 o'clock in the afternoon.
Yeah, Eastern time. Yeah.
And he said he'll go as long as it takes, but then he said something about, well, if we don't wrap up by 6 o'clock or something. I thought, well, that's New Year's Eve. But it's not really Eve. New Year's Eve to me is the evening. Mm-hmm. So if we did a show after his New Year's Eve, did a fundraiser, we can't use the super chat feature in YouTube, but you know where to go, robertnasir.com/Patreon, or I guess PayPal, robertnasir.com, paypal.com/robertnasir for one-time contributions. I don't know, maybe we could do that. Of course, we're not going to raise $15,000.
Yeah.
$15,000, that's impossible. Obviously, we would raise much more than that, but it would be fun. It would be fun to see how it would compare. I wonder if any of y'all think you'll just be hanging out at home, taking it easy on New Year's Eve. So there's 2 questions for you, your favorite tea, and what are you doing on New Year's Eve? And on this date, December 15th, 2024, well, this is interesting. At least it's interesting to me. First of all, happy birthday to Gustave Eiffel.
Oh, lovely.
Yes, Alexandre Gustave Bonickhausen dit Eiffel.
Oh.
His birthday was today in 1832.
All right.
Most charming aspect of Gustave Eiffel, obviously the Eiffel Tower, and great engineer, great designer, and friend of Thomas Edison.
Yeah, that's right.
If you ever get a chance, and some of you I'm sure already have, to go to Paris and climb the Eiffel Tower, well, take the elevators, go to the very top where Gustave Eiffel kept an office, and they have maintained that office. You can't go in, you can only look through the windows.
Yeah.
But there are wax figures of Eiffel and his sister, who worked with him.
Yeah, his daughter.
His daughter. Thank you, his daughter. And Thomas Edison.
That's right.
Thomas Edison lives in our memories on the top of the Eiffel Tower.
Yeah, and he actually built this for the 1889 Universal Exposition in Paris. And at the time, everybody thought it kind of looked ugly. And their thought, and his thought even, was that after this exposition, it would be torn down.
Yeah, it was just an exhibit for the World's Fair.
1889, and I forget exactly. I think it was a American who devised a way to actually add elevators into it. Eventually,
there were not originally elevators. That's right.
Yeah, so it's got a great history. They paint it, I don't know, every so often just to make sure it doesn't rust. But yeah, it's a beautiful structure.
And nowadays it lights up like crazy.
Yes.
Especially for special events. So yeah, happy birthday to the late but great Gustave Eiffel, 1832.
Yeah, oh, by the way, and he also contributed to building the Statue of Liberty in New York.
Right.
Fantastic.
Yeah, and the great thing about the Statue of Liberty is there are several.
Yes.
It's a beautiful sculpture. Of course, the big one is in New York City, but there are several all over Paris and in other places. So
yeah, there's a third of the size, or third to scale of the size in the financial district in Paris, and many others. So
yes. Also on the stage, it's the birthday of J. Paul Getty. And I get that Aerosmith song stuck in my head every time that I say that name, J. Paul Getty. Born on this date, 1892. And the reason I bring J. Paul Getty into the conversation is, dude had issues. Some of them were fun things, like he was, at the time, the wealthiest man in the world, and he put in a payphone in his home because he would have guests over, and phone calls used to be expensive to make. I don't know if you remember some of you will be old enough to remember this. Long distance phone calls. You'll see this in old movies. It's funny that it's funny. Long distance phone calls. What do you mean? If you have a cell phone, you can call anywhere in the world and it costs exactly the same. And nothing more than your cell plan. No, it used to be a thing. Anyway, J. Paul Getty installed a payphone in his home so that visitors could pay for their own phone calls. Richest man in the world. Go figure. Sad thing about J. Paul Getty is that it appears a lot of his quirks led him to not be a happy man, but also incidents in his life. Some of you will know his grandson, for example, Jean-Paul Getty III, was kidnapped. And unfortunately, the kidnappers were like members of a mafia-related group. And unfortunately, when he did not respond to their demands right away, they cut off the ear, one of the ears of his grandson, and wrapped it in newspaper and sent it to him. And J. Paul Getty, the grandfather, did eventually pay the ransom, and the child was found at a gas station where they dropped him off. It looks like being the richest guy in the world didn't make him happy. And I compare that to the richest guy in the world right now, and I have so many criticisms of Elon, my friend Elon. But the one thing I've got to admire about Elon Musk is he actually appears to be enjoying his success. So many of us, when we were young and naive, would look at the lives of rich people and say, well, Bill Gates has done a great job building Microsoft, and he's really philanthropic, so he saves people around the world from malaria and things. But I don't know, he didn't seem to be having that much fun. And if I was rich, and then you make a list of 20 things that you would do if you had all the money in the world. Elon Musk actually does that stuff, and it seems like J. Paul Getty didn't. So anytime that I'm really concerned about what Elon is doing with Donald these days, I'll just remind myself, well, at least he's fun.
Well, not only that, but I don't think Elon Musk comes from money. I think that he's I don't know if he inherited.
He didn't come from the kind of money that he's in.
Yeah.
His family was well-to-do, and he got a lot of assistance getting started. But you're right.
Yeah, Jean Paul Getty was the son of pioneer oil man George Getty. So, I'm assuming that there was some kind of inheritance or old money there.
Yes, he did start from money.
Yeah. Which is really difficult, by the way, for some people.
Well, that's the thing. It's they say if you're wealthy, even if you've got problems, but you can show up to your problems in style. I love that idea. But it makes the point. Because also on this date, December 15th, now this is 1973. So they actually celebrated this event last year, 50 years. So it's been 51 years now since this date, the APA, and I don't mean the physicians, I mean the American Psychiatric Association, removed homosexuality from its list of mental illnesses.
What year was this again?
1973, 51 years ago.
That's crazy.
50 years is a long time, but it's really not that long a time. That to me, and maybe it has to do with the fact that I've seen 50 years come and go, what the hell?
Yeah.
What the actual hell? So it's great to be living in modern times when whatever your opinion of our homosexual friends, the idea of categorizing that as a mental illness, before that was just, that was, man.
Yeah,
No, we have come a long
Well, I'll just say
way.
that I think, thankfully, religion has gotten its claws out of a lot of things, including that one. And
yeah, I guess you've got to put religion in the mix if you're wondering what the hell. How the hell was that even possible?
Yes.
Because you can go back to ancient writings and find love stories between men, love stories between women. This is not some new thing that cropped up, as much as certain conservatives would like to think that's a modern phenomenon. No. So, y'all, Christmas is coming. Love who you're going to love.
Yep.
We'll connect this all more in a bit. It's also the birth date of Henri Becquerel. Of course, the person who shared the Nobel Prize along with Marie Curie for discovering or understanding radioactivity. Let's see, shared the 1903 Nobel Prize in Physics with Pierre and Marie Curie for the discovery of radioactivity. The SI unit, that's Standard International Equivalent Unit. No, wait a minute. SI, is that Standard International? Somebody will tell me what SI stands for. I'm having a brain thing. The SI unit of radioactivity, the Becquerel, is named after him. Of course, we also measure in curies for Madame Curie. Maybe she doesn't have the SI version of that. Maybe that's the more common version. But yes, unfortunately, Henri Becquerel only lived to be 55. But yesterday, a guest in our home mentioned that it was Maxwell's birthday. If those of you who understand the Maxwell equations, actually, I found a video, which I haven't watched yet, that claims it will explain the Maxwell equations for electromagnetism in less than 10 minutes. I wonder if you already have to be at that level of mathematics understanding to have the Maxwell equations explained to you in 10 minutes, but I'm going to give it a shot. And I mention all of that, all this physics stuff, this science stuff, because yes, last night we had a friend over. We had several friends over. It was Glow Night. Yeah. GLO, not GLOW, some of you are thinking right away. Are you talking about those drones in New Jersey, those glowing lights that nobody can figure out what they are?
They've already, they've already discovered who it was, and they've arrested them.
Really?
Yeah.
Who was it?
It was just a few guys, a few drone fanatics. I mean, it sounded like they were hobbyists, but I don't know. I really don't know if they had an agenda. I mean, they were basically arrested for making it, dangerous for airplanes to fly and too close to the airport, mister.
Yeah.
And
Well, that's interesting to me because I've long thought that drones are going to be a big, big part of the future.
Yeah.
We talk about AI, we talk about automation and robotics, and those are going to change everything. That's true, but drones are going to be a big part of that. You're starting to see that in military operations, drones instead of manned aircraft. And there's always been, well, not always, for a long time there's been drone aircraft, but these kinds of drones, these 4-prop or 6-prop or 8-prop helicopter drones, they're gonna change a little of everything. For a while they were, Amazon, maybe they still are, using them to make short-range deliveries. But as battery technologies get better, as you can charge these things and have them run longer, huge. So I'm not surprised if it turned out a bunch of hobbyists. And 5 years ago, hobbyists meant people bought these little drones, and they would have a little camera on them, and they could go up and take really cool pictures. No, we're talking 6 foot, 8 foot, 10-foot drones here. And that ain't the end of it. No, it's going to keep expanding. But no, the glow I'm talking about is not the glow of drones. Great Lakes Objectivists, GLO. We had our monthly get-together last night.
Yeah.
How did it go, Amy?
Well, we had beef bourguignon in the crock pot.
Beef bourguignon.
Jennifer came over and brought the wonder dog, Mina.
That's true. We don't normally allow pets, but we will always make an exception for Jennifer and Mina, who is darling.
Yeah, Mina was very, very good. Later, she got a little antsy and started becoming obsessed with feathers. It's a long story. So they decided to, get going and put Mina to bed.
Well, we've had young children attend our events, and the
Yeah.
young children get into more mischief than the dog did.
Yeah.
And the young children are welcome. I don't mean to say that either.
Yeah,
but
well,
no.
you have to put the chips and dips, above where the children are, hopefully.
Well, I mentioned the Yar and Brooks show earlier. People who attend the Yar and Brooks shows in the chat, Mina's already famous there. So,
Yes.
So some of you will know exactly who we are talking about.
Yeah, Mina was very charming.
Yes.
And,
But it was a good night, good conversations, and kindred spirits.
yeah, it was great. There were wonderful, there was a person who we've been in contact with here and there, and went out with, a couple weeks ago, and then he actually came over last night.
Oh,
So
yeah, first timer.
Yeah, well, he's been studying objectivism for many years,
Yep.
and it was really nice for him to be around like-minded people. And yeah, we had a number of different friends, and it was very nice. It was a smaller group, and that actually is sometimes a little bit better, but because people have a little bit more opportunity to talk, and it's just a little bit easier. But it was great.
It's easier to share the spotlight.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
2 points that I want to make tonight, and all of that is going to relate to them. But first, still on the calendar here, I did not know how you were going to be dressed tonight, Amy.
What?
But it is actually Ugly Sweater Day.
Oh, I don't know. This is pretty ugly.
I did not know you were going to be wearing a sweater dress, Christmas sweater dress.
Yeah, it's I can't really show it, but it's basically of a house, like a gingerbread house kind of thing.
Yeah, candy
and
house.
you've got little brick here going on and everything, and it's nice,
Yeah, well, you're sparkly, well placed.
That's not showing.
Oh, it's not on the camera. Okay, well, folks, some of you are missing out here.
Yeah.
I don't understand the whole ugly sweater phenomenon. There was a time when, we would joke about your grandmother knit you a sweater for the holidays, but it turned out kind of garish, and you wouldn't necessarily wear it to school where you were worried about what kids thought about how you looked, but your grandma knitted it, and of course you're going to wear it at least once. And I guess it was a matter of taking that slightly cringe kind of moment we sometimes have and making a thing out of it. But it's a big, big thing.
Yeah.
If you haven't ever gone on Amazon.com or any other shopping website and searched for ugly sweater, it's crazy. I'm curious if anybody else finds that as weird, as unusual a phenomenon as I do. I don't get it, but maybe I'm not supposed to get it.
Well, yeah, you don't actually own an ugly sweater or any kind of novelty sweater. I would call them novelty sweaters.
Novelties, yeah, that sounds nicer, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's fine. Actually, one of the trends nowadays, well, not nowadays, but that I'm seeing on places online are women who are kind of going back to the 1950s and 60s, who create these sort of pieces to put on their heads. They're sort of like beehives, but they're not. They're in the shape of a Christmas tree, and so they're wearing a structure with all the Christmas tree stuff on, and they've got little lights going on, and so I thought about actually putting one together for myself. We'll see. It looked like a lot of fun.
I'm just getting a little bit caught up with the chat here. Frank says, "You guys know Jennifer Lionberger?" Yes, we not only know Jennifer Lionberger, the world's greatest Rush fan, but we know the dog. We know Mina. So, yes, the King Charles Spaniel. If that sounds very, frou-frou, very fancy, it is. It's a very fancy dog. It's a beautiful dog. When I was growing up, we had mutts. We went down to the Humane Society, the dog pound, and got our dogs there. And I like mutts because they have a great personality, and they tend to be, just good dogs. But no, Mina is a King Charles Spaniel, the kind of dog you would expect to see at the side or in the lap of a king or queen. Royalty dog, absolutely. So let's see. It is Ugly Sweater Day. And there's one more, and now I've got to look at my notes because I don't remember what it was. Oh, here we go. On December 15th, 1791, the Bill of Rights is finally ratified, making this holiday Bill of Rights Day.
Oh, nice.
Those of you who don't know anything at all about history or the United States won't know, but you know, when they wrote the Constitution, they said, this Constitution, this is what constitutes good government. This is, you follow this, you're done. It's going to be great. The United States is going to be the greatest country in the world. It's funny because by almost every measure it is. I mean, you know, progress, prosperity, GDP, gross domestic product, number of inventions and inventors, innovations. I don't mean to be cocky just because I'm an American, but... And then they say, wait. The Constitution has a great structure for government, policies and procedures, what the president can do, what the legislature can do, what the judiciary can do, how it's all going to work. But we need more protections for the individual rights. We need a bill of rights. And the Founding Fathers would write back and forth to each other, and they would publish essays arguing back and forth on this. Because some of them said, for example, in the Federalist Papers, no, if you do a Bill of Rights, if you had, for example, a First Amendment that protects free speech, as well as freedom of religion, as well as freedom of the press, freedoms of expression. Well, if you say that that's a right, what about other things you didn't say, or people can assume, well, the government obviously can control then commerce. The government obviously can control the printing of money. The government obviously can infringe on our rights in all these other ways because they're not in the Bill of Rights. So, well, we just put more rights in there. We'll have a second bill of rights is protection of the right to firearms. You can protect yourself. You can have the equipment to protect yourself. And on and on. A Fifth Amendment. You don't have to, say anything in a courtroom where you're on trial that will incriminate you. And on and on and on. In fact, let's have a Ninth Amendment. What's the Ninth Amendment? Ninth Amendment says anything that's not in this Bill of Rights should be assumed to be the rights of the people and not the rights of the government. If we didn't cover it, it goes to the people, not the government. Well, that's going to work. And yet a lot of people said, no, as soon as you delineate, as soon as you make a list of these rights, the government's going to say, yeah, and anything that's not in there, even though it says anything that's not in there is still the people's rights, yeah, we're going to get in there. And the reason I point that out is they were both right. The crafters of the Bill of Rights were right. By laying all of this out, we have had protections no other nation has had. It's strange to me because I'm so used to it that people are prosecuted and persecuted for free expression in, let me pick on a country, the UK, because they've had a lot of cases like that recently. You say the wrong thing, I shouldn't pick a particular religion, but you say the wrong thing about Muslims these days in the UK, you could end up fined. You could end up in jail. Not for harassing anybody, not for threatening anybody, just for saying the wrong stuff. How can that be? First Amendment. Well, it's the UK. They don't have a First Amendment. They don't have a Bill of Rights. On the other hand, when it was said that the Bill of Rights would actually erode our rights by making assumptions about those items not listed in the bill, they were right about that too. Both were right. And they think, well, no, they're mutually exclusive. They can't have both been right. Turns out they're not mutually exclusive. It turns out it's complicated. And I mention that because I'm seeing a failure to appreciate the complexity of things in some of the discussions my friends are having, and it's not making them happy. It's not leading to good results. I don't ever want to say that you shouldn't immediately defer to principles, to concepts, to simple answers if they are available. Oh, man. But, no, sometimes it's complicated. And sometimes there are things you've got to acknowledge on both sides of an issue. And once you've done that, then you can say, okay, now I see why I'm on this side and not on that side. But some things are complicated. And I think it's important to appreciate that. Before I say one or two other things about that, first of all, under the category of what are we listening to this week, there were some really, really good podcasts this week.
Oh, I missed them then because I couldn't find any.
So they're listed in the show notes under Shameless Self-Promotion and What Are We Listening To This Week. No self-promotion this time, although I'll do that here. No, the 3 items I heartily encourage you to listen to, 2 of them actually come from Barry Weiss's Honestly podcast. They were both interviews. Barry's back. Barry was gone for a while. She wasn't on as much over Christmas, and her other hosts on the Honestly podcast are good, but no, when Barry's around, it's usually better. First one was an interview with Mark Andreessen on AI tech censorship and dining with Trump. Because Andreessen, as a tech leader, is good friends with Elon Musk and is now kind of in that group that's been hanging out with Donald Trump talking about tech solutions to government problems. I'm not going to get too much into that, but that conversation, sometimes just listening to really smart people talk about current events in ways that are nuanced, in ways that acknowledge complexity, man, that was good stuff. Really good. Highly, highly encourage you to listen to that episode. You will feel better about the side of these issues that you are on. And you will even feel better about the side you're not on. Because you'll see it's not all just stupidity and insanity and malice. No, there are good people on both sides of this issue. Speaking of which, Sam Harris on his podcast Making Sense did a monologue. This one was not an interview. This is entirely him speaking on the topic of intellectual authority and its discontents. Definitely worth listening to. When Sam Harris is good, he's really, really good. And this time he was really good. Listen to that sometime this week if you haven't already. Incidentally, if you've heard any of these, mention them in the chat. I'm interested to know if you got the same impression I did. Finally, that second interview with Barry Weiss, which was with Kemi Badenoch. And for those of you who don't know UK politics, Kemi Badenoch, she's mostly good, but she's also Badenoch. No, Kemi is the leader of the Conservative Party in the UK. And, the Conservative Party has a hard time keeping good leadership. Kemi is kind of amazing. She's really, really sharp. And she's not a typical UK politician. She was raised in Nigeria. She is a black woman, which is always cool just because there's often extra knocks people face when they're coming from a minority and trying to get up through, especially conservative leadership. Title of the episode is Kemi Badenoch the next Margaret Thatcher? And it's funny because in the lightning round, the little bit at the end of the show, Barry Weiss asks her, what do you think of Margaret Thatcher? Are you the next Margaret Thatcher? And Badenoch's very modest about it. She's like, no, Margaret Thatcher, she changed everything. She was, a whole different thing. But if you listen to the interview, it's a reasonable question because this sounds like a woman who could change everything. And I mentioned those podcast episodes, A, because you should definitely listen to them. But B, it gets back to the observation I've had this week that some things are complicated. It's funny, there was a conversation on the ARC UK. James Valiant was talking to Daniel, the producer. And I wanted to get on there and ask this question because it was related, but then I ran out of time to get in a super chat. But here's my observation. So you folks tell me in the chat what you think. If you're a fan of Donald Trump, our president-elect, or if you are in opposition to Donald Trump, our president-elect, I I'm not a fan. Not a fan of DJT. Not a fan of The Apprentice host. Amy, I think you're even less of a fan than I am, if that's possible. I'm not sure it is.
I think we're pretty equal in our, feelings of being disheartened.
Yeah, my word that usually comes up for me without even thinking about it is loathe. Loathe. I'll spell that out in case it's not clear. I loathe Donald Trump. But I admire, and I'm even inspired by, and I'm kind of jazzed about, Javier Milei, president of Argentina. And I'm now becoming just as excited, just as inspired by and jazzed about Kemi Badenoch.
Mm.
Yeah, what's her full name? Olukemi Olufunto Adegoke Badenoch. That's a heck of a name. I love that Olukemi because it reminds me of Ted Lasso and Ola's Place, and some of you will know the show. And I mentioned Ted Lasso on purpose too. We'll get back to that. I'm glad Javier Milei is out there. I think Argentina has a great future if he can keep doing what he's doing. And I'm glad that Kemi Badenoch is out there. And I think the British Conservative Party, which has had so many ups and downs lately, can be steered in a better direction than it's been and more consistently than it's been. If that sounds like a misplaced hope, listen to Kemi's interview. I love that everybody calls her by her first name, too. Listen to Kemi's interview with Barry Weiss. And if you don't already share my opinion of Javier Milei, listen to his interview on Friedman's show, Lex Friedman's show. Long one. Lex is always on there for a long, long time. And most of it is monologue from Javier because he's not speaking in English. It's through a translator. But wicked good. But here's the thing. Kemi and Javier, Milei and Badenoch, both admire Donald Trump. I guess it's, a friend of my friend isn't always my friend, or the enemy of my friend isn't always my enemy. Something like that.
Well, they're friendly. They admire him. Let's wait another year to see what they think.
That's a good point. That's a very good point.
Yeah.
Once they actually have to deal with him and the results of what he does. Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah, and there have been, I know a lot of people online are very dismayed and very disappointed with a lot of business leaders, going to Mar-a-Lago and kissing the ring and trying to secure special favors in this cronyist regime that is being set up. And, yeah.
Oh, I see Tom in the chat says, I think Andreessen was on Rogan as well. I have a confession to make. I've never actually watched or listened to Joe Rogan. I don't know if you can you watch him or listen to him?
I've seen
he on
clips.
Podcasts? Or?
I've seen clips, but he's goofy and...
I see people co-host clips. I just don't know, is it a regular podcast or a YouTube show or both?
As far as I know, it's both.
No.
There's video along with it. As a matter of fact, he's number one on Spotify, I think, and I believe that Spotify is they're allowing videos to be played in their
app.
In their app, and so that's new. So I'm not surprised by that. But yeah, I mean, it's on video. Well,
maybe he's on Apple Podcast. I use the Apple platform for that kind of thing.
I'm sure he is.
Although Life on Earth, our show Life on Earth with Robert and Amy Nasir, was only on Spotify and Google and those, but not on Apple. For some reason, there was a monkey in the wrench there. Yeah. Yes. So that's another case where I've got to say, it's complicated. I admire Milei. I admire Badenoch. Milei and Badenoch admire Trump. Okay. I always said, if Trump got elected again, we got to look at the bright side. I got to look at the good things that come out of that administration. Isn't it funny how I can't even get myself to say the good things he's going to do, but the good things that will come from that administration. God, maybe I have that derangement syndrome that everybody talks about.
All right.
But if you, my point is, if you want to understand people, or if you want to understand a situation, a context, we tend to go in thinking, well, this is the good guy, that's the bad guy. And going in with that as our first thought ends up coloring everything else that we then receive, all the information that we get. If you want to understand people, try to understand not their motivations. Oh, he's based on greed, and that guy's envious, and this guy just wants to destroy. And if you want to understand people, try to understand what they think, the reasons they give. Not their psychology, but their actual logic. Why they believe what they believe. I see it all too often. We go into a discussion. I do this. We all make this mistake. We go into a discussion with an idea of who's in the right. But, deciding who's right and who's wrong shouldn't happen at the beginning of a discussion. It should happen during and at the end of the discussion. That's the point of having a discussion. And there's an opposite to that can be appropriate. And that's what I want to contrast with this. But yes, in complicated situations with complicated people, sometimes I don't know ends up being the right answer. Or I have an opinion, but I'm not certain. Or it depends. I love the words "it depends," because sometimes it depends. Even in silly discussions of, who's the greatest drummer of all time. Well, it depends on what you mean. Mastery means keeping the full context of complicated situations. That's mastery. Knowing the principles, but knowing their application too. So if things are complicated, let them be complicated. Let it be complicated. That's my point there. If that sounds like it's keeping too many balls in the air, it's hard to juggle too many things. If you let things that are complicated be complicated, I have faith in you. I trust. I know you can handle it. But Amy, it came up on your wall on Facebook, on the social media. Mm-hmm. The kind of situation where it actually would have been wrong to entertain complexity. We have this I don't have an adjective to describe this. So we have a murderer in New York City, recently shot the CEO of a healthcare company.
Yeah, I would say this is a well-educated, low-minded thug, because people have free will.
Well-educated, but low-minded.
Yeah, dimwit by choice. This is what I think of murder.
What do you think of murder?
In general. Murder is the assassination of innocence, of people who are innocent. And murderers, what they do is, not only do they destroy another person's life, a person who is innocent, who doesn't deserve to be murdered at all. And so not only does that happen, but not only are good other innocents being left behind because of the death of that innocent person who was murdered, but the murderer himself or herself, they completely ruin their lives, and they ruin their families' lives. And this is something not to be taken lightly. And I've seen it taken lightly recently by the death of an innocent person, Brian Thompson, the CEO of United Healthcare. And it is really, it's been a real confusing situation for a lot of people because people entertain political ideas along with this context. But the context here is really cut and dried. This is a thug who murdered an innocent man. No one should be applauding the murderer. No one should be praising him. Nobody should be commenting on his looks or whatever. My God, what a lowlife. What a ne'er-do-well. Total loser. And people are praising this guy like he's some sort of Robin Hood or something. And they really don't know their ass from a hole in the ground. And they go into it and they feel some form of catharsis without thinking about anything, without really being careful with their words and with their understanding of our healthcare system in the United States, of the fact that it is fascist for the most part, or for a lot of the part. And it's an industry that should be an industry without any government interference in it. It should be operating in a free market, not meted out by bureaucrats telling doctors and hospitals that they have a certain price that the government's going to pay them by law. It is truly insane. And I'm very disappointed in some people who have not thought this through clearly. And yeah, it is, and it's the same thing. I'm seeing this on a lot of from the right, the left, from all stripes of political ideas. You would think that people would morally shy away from ever electing a president who has been accused of raping people, and you would think that people would shy away from actually praising a murderer. But I really think that a lot of it has to do with that kind of rationalistic, floating abstraction thought that is pervasive on social media, where people really don't have a grasp. They're not inducing ideas from reality. They don't have a good grasp of what's actually real, and what their fantasies are. It's very disappointing to see. Because I've seen this type of bad epistemological approaches before in a lot of circumstances that don't have as many consequences. But unfortunately, this I've been seeing too many real life consequences from bad epistemology, and it's disheartening. Yeah.
So you had posted about this on one of the social media platforms on your wall.
Yeah.
And although it was unusual, it wasn't outrageous that you did not want to argue the issue.
No, I was not going to debate any of this. And somebody, one of our friends, asked me, well, don't you want to hear the differing opinions, and don't you want to see how your ideas stack up to other people's? And I said, absolutely not. Not in this situation. Really? I mean, I'm sure some people might be able to, I'm thinking to myself, this is Christmas time, number one. And my immediate thought was going to the killing of innocent children, the biblical story of King Herod and the Coventry Carol, and and the soldiers are being told to basically kill the first born children or male children of families, and killing, anyway, it's like, okay, well, what kind of rationalism can you apply to that situation? You're talking about the killing of innocents. You don't try to be more nuanced about it. No, you absolutely morally denounce it 100%. And if you can't do that, you better look at yourself in the mirror and ask yourself, well, what am I doing? What am I doing? What kind of value do I put on human life, and how does it apply to my life and the life of my spouse, the life of my children, the life of our friends and family? Because that's what it comes down to. You're going to either live in a civilized society based in rule of law and individual rights, or you're going to become what, a cannibal, a barbarian. I mean, you're gonna have to choose. And anyway, I'm getting on my soapbox here, but yeah, I put in there. I usually don't put in saying I'm not looking for a debate, and I'm going to be deleting any ill-advised comments. Anyway, that didn't quite go as well as I hoped in putting that in there, but
well, if you need to put in the proviso, then you already know in advance it's very possible it'll go off the rails.
Yeah.
The point was to take a stand, state your position. And the point that I want to make there is that that's okay. That is as it should be. Life, human interaction, is not a debate stage. You know, social media can be great for communicating with people. It can even be great for arguing issues. But that's not its primary purpose, and that's not what you are under any obligation to do in any given moment. There's a meme that goes around, and it's a fun one. It's very short. It just says, learn to say no without explaining yourself. I love that. It's self-assertive. It says, sometimes you just got to be willing to say no, even though you're not interested or in a position to be dragged into an argument over an issue. Think of, Ayn Rand's statement in What Can One Do? Never fit. She says the one thing anybody can do. Not all of us can, enter the political fray, become politicians, write long treatises or novels. But what anybody can and should do is pronounce moral judgment when necessary.
Yeah.
When your unwillingness to do so can be interpreted as moral acquiescence. And sometimes, she said, it doesn't mean you always have to argue with people. Sometimes it's just a matter of saying no.
You're wrong. Yes. No, you're wrong. You're morally wrong.
Well, yes, I disagree.
Yeah.
No, you don't even have to say the other person's wrong.
I understand.
All you have to say is, I'm right. I disagree with what you're saying.
Yeah.
I am not giving you the sanction of my staying quiet.
But when I think of this kind of topic, like I was saying about understanding murderers and the kind of destruction that they bring, not only to the people that they murder, but to their own lives and to so many people all around. And this situation for people during Christmas time, a time that should be spent contemplating goodwill among the people that you know and people in general. For people to show how rotten they are during this time of year is really, really disappointing. And when I think of this, this sort of issue, very clear cut for me. A thug has murdered an innocent. It is not it's not compassionate to praise somebody who did such a heinous act. It is not nice to them, and it's not nice to your own moral character. And it's not nice for the people around you who you might be influencing. You are telling people that death as a standard is what we should all aspire to. And that is, you gotta, well, I don't know, check yourself before you wreck yourself. It is serious, and it's a serious moral breach, and I can't even say it like a Christian would say it. Christians, I guess, who used to exist perhaps in the conservative party, who would be very moralistic and very intrinsicist and dogmatic, and they would say, "Oh, this is morally wrong." Well, based on what morality? And is it based on an actual existence and how things play out causally? But yeah, I am so fed up with all of this. If you know anybody who has been sucked into this and is going down a path of thinking that that this was acceptable, then I don't know, show them our video, because they are not doing themselves any favors, and they are not being truly selfish in the rational and benevolent and compassionate sense of the word. And it is really, yeah, it's not good. So you weren't expecting this for me, I know, Robert, but
no, I was raising it as an example. I didn't intend to get into the merits of it, but that's cool. I think we could do a whole episode on. But
in terms of complexity, you need to sleep on it. Don't go right into a debate. Give yourself time to actually think about it and do a little research. Go in and be careful with your thinking, especially when it's involving something like this topic. Be careful with your thinking and be patient. Be patient with yourself. Be patient with others. And it's, be kind to yourself in that way. Because eventually, my hope, and I think my belief or my understanding at this point, is that this will all pass over and things will get better and people will wake up to what's really important in their lives as Christmas comes closer. But yeah, it's complex, but it's never impossible to figure out.
So Equal to Reality has entered the chat and says, "Hello there, I'm a bit late. What did I miss?" Well, you missed a lot, but you didn't, because I can summarize it, at least the 2 points that I wanted to make tonight. The point we're wrapping up here is the wisdom of just saying no without explaining yourself. Not every statement or social media post is an invitation to a conversation, much less a debate.
Yeah.
And imagine if you went to a lecture. You go to an auditorium or university, wherever, and watch a lecture. And then you get angry in the middle of the lecture because you try to speak up and the lecturer is not letting you make your counter-arguments. Or, you read a newspaper article and then you decide you're going to sue the New York Times because they didn't publish a response from you. No, not every statement is an invitation for somebody to disagree.
Absolutely.
So be willing to just say no without explaining yourself. I love that meme because the applications are very broad. The earlier point that I made about some things are complicated and you've got to let them be complicated. You've got to appreciate their complexity. Real mastery is not going in there and saying, here's the principle, you're an idiot if you don't get it. But actually being able to deal with all of the complexity of a situation. That's why we have principles, is in order to be able to do that. Yes. Those are the 2 points tonight, much more entertainingly presented. So if you missed them, you will want to listen to this episode from the very beginning. I have a couple things in the chat I want to answer real quick. Earlier, Narendra said it's also the birthday of Tycho Brahe, I think. The man whose detailed data of planets was used brilliantly by Kepler to discover the laws.
That was December 14th, yesterday.
Yeah. All I know about Tycho is we name craters after him.
Yeah, depending on which time zone you're in.
Jim Ashley says, getting back to Kermit the Frog, wasn't he the lead vocalist for Canned Heat?
I don't know about
I'm glad I'm not the only person who thinks that the lead vocalist for Canned Heat, going up the country, I'm going up the country, where do you want to go? It sounds a lot like, that didn't sound like Kermit the Frog, but that vocalist absolutely does. I am amused beyond belief that I'm not the only one to make that connection.
I couldn't place a song of theirs, but thank you for illustrating that.
Yes. And since I mentioned big drones, Jim also said, anyway, regarding drones, I'm looking forward to and being concerned about, boy, there's a mix I feel about a lot of things, looking forward to and being concerned about the day when miniaturization meets drone technology. That will be useful in military use for reconnaissance of interior spaces, but it will also attract evildoers who want to invade people's privacy. You've already got that. You've got essentially hand grenades being delivered by drone to interior spaces, as well as cameras and all of the monitoring and infiltration. And yes, you're right to be concerned about privacy. Because some of those drones are really, I mean, I own a few drones you would look at and think they're toys, but the point is they're real small. And, it would be very easy if somebody leaves their front door open for me to go poke around somebody else's house. And you can imagine the government with, real high-end stuff doing all sorts of things. Also, Jim asked, do you know if Sam Harris's episode, Intellectual Authority and Its Discontents, is a response to or builds on Sigmund Freud's Civilization and Its Discontents? And the answer is, and I'm only answering this because the answer contains an enormous wisdom, which is one of the points of this episode. I want you to all to get it. The answer is, I don't know. You have got to be willing to say, yeah, I don't know about that one.
Yes.
And sorry, Jim, I don't know. But you got me curious, and I'll look it up. I
was going to say that in objectivism we talk about copper pot values or copper pot valuing, which we've talked about, and you'll have to look that one up. But I submit there's also crockpot philosophizing, or a philosophical crockpot, to put really complex situations in the crockpot, let it sit for a number of hours, and eventually it will integrate.
That's a great point. That is a great point.
So it's the philosophical crockpot. Put it in the crockpot and sleep on it, and see how it comes out in the morning.
Yeah. Listen to Ayn Rand, The Art of Fiction, or The Art of Nonfiction. One of the things that you've got to do with complex, not just tasks, but ideas, is take in the ingredients and then go do something else, or, let it ruminate for a while. You'll be amazed how much wisdom you have just given a certain amount of processing time.
Yes.
There are musicians who say, I wrote that song in my sleep.
Right.
Paul McCartney wakes up and picks up his guitar and plays the song yesterday, having written it in his sleep. So, yes, the mind is a powerful thing, sometimes more powerful than we give it credit for or realize. Absolutely. We're running a little long, so is there anything else in the chat that we should be answering here? There's so many good comments in there.
Well, I mean, Dick Van Dyke turned 99 years old a few days ago.
Yeah.
That was fantastic on the 13th.
That is, yeah.
And
PDA,
I just,
awesome.
I got to tell you, it's not just how old he is, but
no, his spirit.
What a powerhouse of benevolence he is.
It's funny when Christopher Walken did a video with Fat Boy Slim. You got this older guy doing this acrobatic, and he's using supports and wires, and you're like, he's like 60 or 70 years old, and he's doing a Fat Boy Slim video. How cool. Well, Dick Van Dyke just did a video at 99 years old with Coldplay.
Right.
Like, too cool, too awesome. It just reminds us that, man, life is hard. And we're going to run into really hard stuff. We've got some stuff going on the family level around here that's going to be really difficult. Might even affect some of our show schedules coming up.
Yeah.
But for all of life's difficulty, there's also just, it's wonderful. Life is, it's actually, it's a tautology, because without life there aren't values. So obviously life is the source of values, but 99 years old, still singing, still dancing. Gotta love it. So yes. Congratulations to Dick Van Dyke for being awesome for 99 years, and he's not done yet.
Yeah, and what else is there? I'm just gonna throw this out as a reminder again. One of the pieces of wisdom on a personal level that I really gained from Ayn Rand, and I think I've written about this on Facebook. Well, there's actually two things. One is an easy one. It's actually a hard one, but it's an easy one. Is when somebody says to you, you say to somebody, let's do lunch, or let's get together, take it very seriously. And immediately go to your calendar, make sure you get back to them within 24 hours, and actually make it happen. That's what Ayn Rand did. So if somebody if she said that to somebody or vice versa, she would take it very seriously, and she would check her schedule as soon as possible, and she would make it happen.
I love that. There's this metaphor, this idea that what if every time you speak, your words actually came out of your mouth and impressed themselves on the walls or on paper or out in the world, you would take a little more care to say what you really mean.
Yeah.
To say what is true, to say what really matters to you, to take your words seriously. And I love the anecdotes. Harry Binswanger shares a couple about Ayn Rand in exactly that way. If she said something to you, she meant it. Even something as simple as "let's get together soon." If she said that to you, you were going to get together soon.
Yes. And the second thing is that when you're ending a podcast or you are ending an evening, like we had at Glow last night, make sure that you mention something positive, something aspirational, something that you're anticipating in the future that's pleasant, or some kind of pleasant thing at the very end of your conversation or very end of the show.
Love that.
And, just to kind of reestablish a benevolent outlook and a hopeful outlook, and that, and a lot of these things I'm picking up from the Fast Hits of Ayn Rand by Marianne Suarez and Charles Suarez. And great book. They
would have conversations that sometimes happens in Glow that run well into the morning hours. And if one of those conversations ended on a topic that was
depressing,
a downer, a negative, Ayn Rand would say, well, we can't end it that way. Let's talk. And then she would bring up something, or somebody would bring up something more positive to end the evening on a more benevolent note. Love that. I always say curate your experiences, curate your spaces, be intentional. Choose.
Yes.
Just choose.
And and this is one more thing is that this is a time. This is the end of the year. This is a perfect time to be contemplative about what you are proud of that you've done this past year. What virtues have you practiced? What things, what virtues got you where you wanted to go? That's, I think, very, very important. And you focus on your values, on what on your own method of thinking, on your own method of acting, and what did you do that actually surprised yourself. There may be those things in there, and so yes, the virtue of pride is very apt for this time of year. And of course, looking towards the future with regard to New Year's resolutions. And I think that's actually kind of what makes New Year's resolutions not arbitrary to think about during this time of year, because it is the end of the year. It's a calendar milestone, and it's a measurable period of time that you can look back in the 12 months and ask yourself, what went right and how did I make that happen? And how can I then apply that to what I am looking forward to in the new year? There's my advice. Use those virtues. You've got them, you know them, you've read about them, you've seen them in action, you've seen them in the fiction characters as well, of course. But use them. They're yours.
Yes, be intentional. Choose. My Post-it note for the week says milk, eggs, cherry pie. No, wait, that's the wrong note. My Post-it note for the week says, woo! And
is that the ghost of Jacob
the ghost
Marley?
of Christmas something? Yeah, no, it's well, again, what we're talking about is choose your experiences, choose your state of mind, choose. And a lot of people would say that's very woo. I like woo. I'm a big fan of woo. No, not literally, not irrationality, but I want to embrace more of these ideas, like Amy, what you're talking about. There's, speaking of the internet and social media and memes, there's this idea of people will post something very woo. It will say something like, and it's usually intended for people who are sad or even actually depressed. If you got through this day If you woke up this morning and got dressed and ate something and drank something and got through the day, that's enough, and you're enough. And I love that, and I hate it because it's setting the standards awfully low. But if you think about it, what it takes to get out of bed in the morning and clean yourself up and get dressed and brush your teeth and make a coffee and have some food on the table. And even if you didn't do a lot in terms of your actual goals, your long-term goals, your big projects, your big ambitions, what you want out of life, no, there is more in getting through a day. And I don't think we should take that stuff for granted. No, I think it's pretty good.
Yeah, I mean, how I see that is that you're not necessarily creating values that day, but you are maintaining the ones that you have.
And maintaining them does require a certain amount of creation.
Yes.
So yeah, don't be too easy on yourself because you got ambitions. You got big plans. You got things you want to do. But I like it. And my point is, I love a good aphorism. I love finding the wisdom in the woo. You deserve to do that. You deserve to have an outstanding rest of your evening. You deserve to have a Merry Christmas. So we'll do this again.
Yes.
Unless something else comes up, we will probably be back next Sunday, as always, 6 p.m. Eastern Time, which means we have one more episode before Christmas. What do you think our topic should be?
Christmas.
Of course, we'll find a unique slant on it with your input from the chat. Thank you very much for sharing. I will, as always, be saving the chat, looking over to see what notes I missed, because you guys are clever and always one of the best parts of the show. Thank you for joining us. That's it. All that is left is for us to say, if you have ideas for future episodes of this show, things you think we should talk about, things we should bring back that we have talked about, things which you can't believe anybody would talk about, and you're going to dare us to do it, throw it in the chat or post it in the 5 Minutes with Robert and Amy Nasir Facebook group.
Yes, and if you think that we've been a good boy and girl this year, you're welcome to be our Santa and go to robertnasir.com, which you will find links to PayPal and to Patreon, and you'll be able to send us a little bit of your values in the form of money.
Okay, I don't know if I could handle that much love, but try me. Yes, thank you for the reminder, Amy.
I think,
you can support 5 Minutes with Robert and Amy Nasir.
Do you think that we've been good children this year?
Well, we have patrons who do think that. And for that reason, I want to thank you, especially as we come toward the end of the year. Thank you to those of you who do support the show. Those of you who, whether you're one-timers or our list of monthly patrons, and they run the gamut. I think we've run the gamut from $2 to $50 right now. So if you want to buy us a cup of coffee every month, $2 contribution, love seeing that list grow. But thank you. Thank you to those of you who do. You're in our hearts and you keep the lights on, literally. And that's it. All that is left is for me to thank you. Thank you for being here. Thank you for hanging out. Thank you for your comments in the chat. Thank you for everything that you do that keeps us inspired, motivated to keep doing this. Because you are the most awesome audience in podcasting, I want to wish you every success that you so richly deserve. I know you do. Some of you are working crazy hard. Some of you are between jobs. Some of you are in difficult situations, but all and each and every one of you, because you're bright enough to watch a show like this, I know that you deserve every success. You deserve all of the flourishing that each of us are looking for in lives, the richness, the complexity of value experiences, even difficulties, which highlight our values. And for that reason, as always, and maybe a little extra as Christmas is approaching,